This happened when I was in high school. We were having our vacation, so we decided to head towards our cousin's place. We were having a really good time when we heard the news from someone that their neighbours had fallen sick. The sick lady was taken to hospital, which was situated in a deserted, or as the locals said, a haunted area. The hospital had its own graveyard. We went to visit her. After spending some time in, I decided to take a walk, alone. I was outside the hospital, sitting on a bench, when I saw an old man selling nuts, and people were gathered around him to grab theirs. I saw a male, in his 40s, buying some peanuts from the vendor, and instead of paying him, he headed inside the hospital. The vendor started to shout and yell at the man, who was going straight without even being bothered by the noise. The man entered the hospital, and the hawker followed him. I was watching the whole scene. The hawker was crying and yelling at the same time while he followed the man. As he went in, some nurses and ward boys tried to stop him by saying that no such person came there and he had a misunderstanding. A doctor stopped by to know what was really happening. The vendor told him that he saw the man going straight and then he turned left. The doctor, who was a bit shocked, said, "Are you in your senses? Do you know what place you're pointing at? You are describing a way to the morgue where bodies which have not been claimed by anyone are kept." "I don't know, but I'm telling the truth." The vendor was angry because he was not paid by some mystery man and he wanted money badly. The doctor agreed to show him that he had been mistaken. They went to the morgue and the door was locked. But to prove the vendor wrong, the doctor said, "Open the door and let him see for himself." The guard opened the door, and when they went in, they saw the packet of peanuts that was lying beside one of the bodies. As they lifted the cloth from the body's face, the vendor screamed and said this was the same person who came to me and went without paying. But all we could see was a dead man in front of us. I was scared as hell, and this incident always scares me to the present day. I've been working as a nurse for quite a long time now. It was the middle of December and I was looking after geriatric patients. I was working the night shift, and before I proceed further, I'd like to tell you that I don't believe in ghosts. So, that night, I skipped my dinner and decided to take a nap instead. I went out of the hospital into my car, turned on the 30-minute timer, and fell asleep. I was asleep but conscious. I had experienced sleep paralysis multiple times before, and I was well aware of the things happening around. After a few minutes, I heard a bang on my car door. I looked towards the window and saw one of my patients, who we used to call Erica, crying and beating the hell out of the door. I asked her why she was up so late, as before coming down here, I had ensured everyone was in their bed, asleep. Erica told me that she wanted to see her daughter and it was an emergency. I tried moving myself so I could go out and calm her a bit, but I didn't succeed. I was a little freaked out because Erica was growing angry and the pounding on the window was also increasing. I tried my best to get out of the car, but I don't know why. Something was stopping me. Suddenly, my car window broke and I gained consciousness. My forehead was heated and my heartbeat was racing. I looked outside and no one was there. Realizing it was a dream, I calmed myself down. Now, my break time was over too, so I headed back inside. My two fellow nurses were talking to a senior doctor. I went closer, and Dr. David told me that while I was on my break, Erica had passed away. I was startled and just went blank. I had only interacted with her a few moments before. I know it was a dream, but it felt so real. I still don't know what to call it, but whatever it was, it scares me to death. This is an incident that my uncle told me. He is a doctor at Dameron Hospital Association, California. So, a man named Mr. Peterson was brought to the psychiatric unit of the hospital. He used to stay awake, and people around thought that he was insane. He did weird things. He used to look around as if someone or something was chasing him. He used to be soaked in fear all the time. So after observing him for a couple of days and receiving complaints from fellow patients, he was shifted to the private room instead of the general ward. He always said that someone was there in his room and that he didn't want to be alone. The doctors couldn't shift him with the other people because of the complaints. One night, when my uncle went to check on him, he said there was someone in his room as he pointed towards the bathroom door. "Mr. Pete, There is no one there. Trust me, you are being delusional." My uncle gave him an injection of sedative so that he could rest. The next night, the exact same thing happened again, but this time, Mr. Pete screamed like a child. My uncle went to see what had happened. He was repeating the same thing, that someone is there. You have to get me out or else he will take me with him. Uncle couldn't inject him with another dose of sedative because of the risk of overdose, so he tried calming him, and when he was a bit more relaxed, my uncle went to another patient. The following day, when the nurse came back to check on Pete, he was found dead in his room. The doctors did an autopsy and declared heart attack as the cause of death, but no one knows what caused the attack, what was in the room, and what caused Mr. Pete his life is still unknown.